Good evening. This is Bible Answers. My name is Evan Gregory, and as always, this is brought to you by the North Columbus Church of Christ. We are looking through or going through the book of John. Tonight, we're going to start in John chapter 9. And we finished up in chapter 8 where Jesus was making some statements on who he is, really laying out for the Jews, the Jewish leaders about who they are, who they truly serve, saying that they really serve Satan, even though they may claim that they serve God, or even if they claim Abraham as their father. This is who they truly are, and so Jesus then ends chapter 8 saying that basically he is God, that in the beginning he was. He uses that phrase, "I am." The Jews know what he's saying when he's claiming that was him, and so they seek to stone him. And he gets away from them, and then we pick up in chapter 9. So really, what we see this tension between the Jews and Jesus. It's starting to ratchet up a little bit, and so we'll look through part of chapter 9 tonight. And also, this is a live show, so if you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave those here. We'll start in verses 1 through 5. It says, now as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work. As long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. So him and his disciples, they see this blind man, and notice what his disciples ask him. Who sinned? Was it him? Was it the parents? Who sinned for him to be born blind? And they have this idea that if something bad has happened, or someone is born with some defect, or there's some problem, that it is a result of someone's sin. We see that in the book of, if you're not familiar with the book of Job, read it. You'll know what I'm talking about. But that Job's friends even have an idea that because of the suffering of Job, that is the cause of something that Job did. And what we see here is that idea has continued on. Now, certainly we can read throughout the Bible of people that have suffered consequences for their sins. If people were made in their sins, everybody, they all are going to suffer consequences for that. But here we see where this idea that if there is someone is suffering from some malady, that it is a result of someone's sin. And so his disciples ask him, did this man sin? Did his parents sin that he was born blind? And notice Jesus' response is, neither this man nor his parents sin, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. He says that nobody sinned here. This is not as a result of any type of punishment, but he says that the works of God should be revealed in him. It looks as though Jesus is saying that there was a purpose for this, but it wasn't for sin. It was, and we'll see later on. I'm not going to give it away, but we see what purpose uh, is going to be revealed through him being born blind. And I don't. And so we see here that it's clear that these things are not caused by people's sins, but we do, and I think we can see through other scriptures, is that sometimes when bad things happen, there is not an explanation for it. We can't look at something and say, well, this is the cause, or that is the cause. It's simply just part of living in the world, and we can't place blame on one thing or one person. But here, there Jesus saying that there was a purpose. It wasn't sin, but there was a bigger purpose here for him being blind. He says, "I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one is coming." He says, "I am the light of the world" as well. So we see this urgency with Jesus, that he's going, and I think what he's saying is, while I'm still here, I'm not going to be with you always, but while I'm here, I got to stay busy. I'm going to be going about my work. He is the light of the world. He's bringing forth truth. But there's going to be a time in which the night is going to be come. That it's going to be, he's going to be gone. We're all going to die eventually. There's going to be a time when all this stops. But while we can, he's going to continue his work. Going on to verses 6 through 9, it says, when he had said these things, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay. And he said to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is translated sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who previously had seen that he was blind said, is not this he who sat and begged? Some said, this is he. Others said, he is like him. He said, I am he. So they see the blind man, and we see then Jesus making this clay, spitting on the ground and making this clay and anointing the eyes of the blind man. We don't know why he does this. We just don't know. I think if we know a little bit about Jesus, that there's really no he could have healed him immediately. But he still had this process, and I think maybe there was, we see that he gives this man some instructions, so maybe he was seeing if this man would go and follow along with these instructions. But he gives him very specific instructions. He puts the clay on the eyes, and he tells him to go wash in this pool. So he does exactly what Jesus tells him to do, and lo and behold, we see that he comes back seeing. Now, this man, and let's go back to verse 1. Notice it says that he was blind from birth. So the people in the area would know who he is. He's been blind for years and years. And so now he's seeing. Jesus healed him from blindness. And we see as he comes back, and we see that these people are questioning, is this really the guy? Wasn't this the guy who was blind? Others say that he's like him. He says, I am him. So we see this confusion erupting from him being made whole again. But we see Jesus here doing another notable miracle for this man, and something that couldn't be denied by those that knew the man, and of course the man himself. So we go to verses 10 through 15. It says, therefore they said to him, how were your eyes open? He answered and said, a man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, go to the pool of Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and I received sight. Then they said to him, where is he? He said, I do not know. They brought him who formerly was blind to the Pharisees. Now it was a Sabbath when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight. He said to them, he put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see. So, of course, we see this continuing narrative of people asking him, how did this happen? He tells them that Jesus was able to heal him. He tells him that he's told him to go to the pool and wash. He received sight, and he doesn't know where he is. So then they take this man to the Pharisees. Now, one thing that we denote here, and this will be a problem later on, it says that it was a Sabbath when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. And we'll see why this is a problem later on. But he's doing this during the Sabbath, and he continues to explain to the Pharisees what happened, how he was able to receive his sight. And so the people are trying to figure out what's going on. The Pharisees are trying to figure out what's going on. And so it would seem as though that the Pharisees know who Jesus is, and so they heard this, and I'm sure that they were not overjoyed by hearing that Jesus has made this man a whole. And we look later or earlier in previous chapters, their attitudes towards him. and really the conversations that they have with Jesus, that it is possible here that they may be seeking to criticize, or I'll say that lightly, criticize him, criticize Jesus in some way. So we go to verses 16 through 17. It says, therefore, some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God because he does not keep the Sabbath. Others said, how can a man who is a sinner do such signs? And there was a division among them. They said to the blind man again, what do you say about him because he opened your eyes? He said he is a prophet. Notice the reaction of the Pharisees. So he heals them on the Sabbath. And so this is the day in which they should not be doing any type of work according to the law. So this would have been the last day of the week. So this would have been Saturday for us that they were supposed to be keeping this. And he tells them there's no way that this man is from God because he did this on the Sabbath. He performed some work on the Sabbath. This always fascinates me. This man is blind and has been healed. We know that a miracle has occurred. A great miracle has occurred. They're caught up on him doing this on the Sabbath, which is an issue. I mean, it is an issue. Is he doing these things? Why is he doing this? In their minds, he would be breaking the law. Well, we won't see it here, but in other passages, Jesus makes it clear that in fact, when he heals on the Sabbath, this is not a breaking the law. This is an urgent need. They understand that an urgent need or emergency that is excluded from the laws of the Sabbath. Another thing that's what's also fascinating to me is they're claiming that there's not supposed to be work done, this, that, and the other. There seems to be a lot of activity happening on the Sabbath as well. This is there's a lot of people conversing, a lot of activities. The Pharisees seem to be busy busy criticizing, and nobody has a problem with all of that. And I always find it interesting that they're accusing him of not keeping the Sabbath, yet there is a lot of activity happening on their behalf. But anyways, they say that he's not from God because he doesn't keep the Sabbath. Because he broke this law, there's no way that he's from God. But others say, how can a man who is a sinner do such signs? Remember back in John chapter 3 with Nicodemus, that he makes a similar statement that, nobody can do the things that you're doing if God is not with him. He understands that there's something about Jesus here. And so others here are making that same connection. How can a man who is a sinner do such signs? How can one who is not of God or who would be of Satan, how can they do such things? And these people understand it. Again, I said it multiple times here that the purpose of these signs are not just for people to have their lives eased in some way. Is to verify who Jesus is, for people to look at this and say he is who he claimed to be. He is from God. And so these people are making connection. There's no way he could be a sinner and be doing these things. And so we see a division among them. And then the people asked, the Pharisees asked the blind man, what do you say about him? And he says that he is a prophet. Okay, so he's not. This is not the totality of who Jesus is, but he is. There is some understanding about who Jesus is, according or looking at what the blind man, how the blind man responds here. So that takes us into verses 18 through 23. It says, but the Jews did not believe concerning him that he had been blind and received his sight, until they called the parents of him who had received this sight. And they asked him, saying, is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see? I'm going to stop there for a minute. There is a problem with the Pharisees, but the one thing here that I think is notable is they do spend some time trying to figure out the truth of the matter here. That they see this man claiming to be healed, other people claiming that he's healed, and so now, of course, they didn't believe, but they go to try to find his parents and ask them, "Is this your son?" And if he's blind, how then does he now see? And so we do see the people here, and I will give a disclaimer here that I don't think they have the proper attitude towards this, but it is commendable for people to search out, to test things, to figure out the truth of the matter, spend some time trying to figure out the truth of the matter. So at least at this point, I can't be too. I am critical of their attitude, but not critical of the actual activities going forth here. People are making and these people are making wild claims, extraordinary claims. So we need to figure out what the truth of the matter is. So he asked them. He goes and asks the parents what the situation is. Was he really blind? How then does he now see? It says his parents answered them and said, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind, but by what means he now sees, we do not know, or who opened his eyes, we do not know. He is of age. Ask him." He will speak for himself. His parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone confessed that he was Christ, he would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore, his parents said, "He is of age, ask him." So his parents say that we know him. This is our son. He was born blind, but that's it. We don't know anything else. But it looks like that the parents know what has happened. The parents are saying, "Hey, you need to ask our son what happened to him." But again, it looks like based on what we see next, that they know how he was healed, that they know that Jesus healed him. They said these things because they feared the Jews, and if anyone would confess that Jesus was the Christ, they were going to be put out of the synagogue. And so we see, uh, and this is odd. We'll see this later. I believe it's later on in John as well. A situation of the Jewish leaders fearing they have some fear of the Jews, or the fear of the Jews, as well as being put out of the synagogue for believing in Jesus or confessing him. And so there is great pressure on these individuals by the leadership to not confess Christ, or to not even make any notion that you actually believe in Jesus, or believe that he was the Christ, and that they were going to be put out. I would assume that this would be similar to being like excommunicated, that they were. I mean, you're done. You're not coming back here. And so they don't want to directly answer, but they push it off on the son in fear fear of the Jews here. And so this is a very tense situation. The parents understand the consequences of if they're saying that he was healed by Jesus, then I would think that it seems as though what we see here, that them saying that he was healed by Jesus, that they would be making the connection that he was the Messiah, or at least that he was of God, verifying that he's of God, and then setting up that evidence for him being the Christ. And so this is a problem for the parents. We'll see on our next show how this individual, the formerly blind man, how he responds to the Jews. But we'll stop here. This will end our show here. Again, if you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave that. Our website for the North Columbus Church of Christ is scrolling below me. It's northcolumbuschristians.com. We also put these videos on YouTube. Our YouTube page is North Columbus Church of Christ, so you can find us there as well. But we'll continue looking through John, just making some points, just reading through it, making some points about each chapter, and I hope that this will be useful for people that are either watching now or at a later time. But until our next show, I hope that you all have a good day and a good rest of the week. Thanks.